The day started like any other. I woke up early, brewed a pot of coffee, and settled at the kitchen table to scroll through the morning news. Claire was still asleep, curled up under the blanket. In moments like these, I often found myself watching her and thinking how lucky I was. She was smart, beautiful, and driven. In 5 years of marriage, we'd had our ups and downs, but I never doubted her loyalty or our connection. But yesterday, something shifted. It began subtly. By mid-morning, Claire seemed restless, pacing the living room while scrolling through her phone. Her replies to my questions were short, almost distracted, as though her mind was somewhere else entirely. I chalked it up to stress. She'd been working late nights all week and barely had a moment to herself. By the afternoon, she dropped the first bombshell. "I'm going out tonight," she said abruptly, standing in the doorway of the kitchen. I looked up from my coffee, surprised. "Out where?" I asked. "Sophia invited me to check out a new club downtown," she replied casually, avoiding eye contact. This wasn't like Claire. She wasn't one for clubs or impulsive plans, and Sophia wasn't someone she'd mentioned in months. "I thought we were staying in tonight," I said, trying to keep my tone neutral. She sighed, her fingers tightening around her phone. "We always stay in, James. I just want to do something different for once." "Is that so bad?" The way she said it, with an edge of frustration, caught me off guard. "It's not bad," I said slowly. "It's just unusual for you. Are you sure everything's okay?" Her face hardened, and she crossed her arms defensively. "Everything's fine. I just need some space. Can I have that?" The conversation left me uneasy, but I didn't press further. I didn't want to seem overbearing, and I trusted her. At least, I thought I did. Later that evening, she emerged from the bedroom dressed in a sleek black dress that hugged her figure perfectly. Her makeup was more dramatic than usual, and she'd styled her hair in loose waves that framed her face. She looked stunning, but something about her appearance made my stomach churn. It was as though she was dressing for someone else, not me. "You look amazing," I said cautiously. "Thanks," she replied, her tone clipped. "I won't be late." I watched her grab her purse and walk out the door without a backward glance. As the sound of her heels faded, the uneasy feeling in my chest grew stronger. The hours ticked by painfully slow. I tried to distract myself, watching TV, reading a book, but my mind kept wandering to where she was and what she was doing. By the time the clock struck midnight, I was pacing the living room, staring at my phone and debating whether to call her. Finally, at 2:30 a.m., I heard the front door creak open. She stepped inside quietly, her hair slightly disheveled, her eyes red and puffy. "Claire," I called out, my voice steady despite the storm brewing inside me. She froze for a moment, then turned to face me. Her makeup was smudged, and she smelled faintly of alcohol and something else I couldn't place. "What happened?" I asked, trying to read her expression. "Nothing," she said quickly, brushing past me. "I'm tired. I'm going to bed." "Claire, wait." I stepped in front of her, blocking the stairs. "You don't look fine. Where were you?" She glared at me, her jaw tightening. "I told you, I went to the club. That's all." Her tone was defensive, almost angry, and it sent a chill down my spine. I wanted to press further, to demand answers, but something in her eyes stopped me. They weren't just tired, they were haunted. Without another word, she pushed past me and disappeared into the bedroom, leaving me alone in the silent, empty house. As I sat on the couch, staring at the spot where she'd stood, a dark thought crept into my mind. What if she wasn't telling the truth? The next morning, Claire was already awake when I came downstairs. She sat at the kitchen table, nursing a cup of coffee and staring blankly out the window. The tension in the air was palpable. "Morning," I said, trying to gauge her mood. "Morning," she replied without looking at me. Her voice was flat, almost mechanical. I poured myself a cup of coffee and sat across from her. She didn't meet my eyes, instead fixating on a small chip in her mug, as though it held all the answers to her thoughts. "Claire," I began cautiously, "about last night. I don't want to talk about it," she interrupted, her tone sharp. That threw me off. Claire had always been open about her feelings, even when we argued. This wall she was putting up wasn't like her. "I'm just trying to understand," I said carefully. "You came home upset, and now you're shutting me out. Did something happen at the club?" Her hands tightened around the mug, and for a moment I thought she might actually tell me. But then she shook her head. "I told you, James. Nothing happened. Can you just drop it?" Her words didn't sit right with me. There was something in her voice, a tremor, a hesitation, that made it impossible for me to believe her. The rest of the day passed in strange silence. Claire avoided me, retreating to her office under the guise of work. I gave her space, but the knot in my stomach only grew tighter. By evening, I couldn't take it anymore. I needed answers. When Claire finally went to bed, I stayed behind, pretending to watch TV. Once I was sure she was asleep, I grabbed her phone from the kitchen counter. I hesitated for a moment, feeling a pang of guilt. We'd always trusted each other, and going through her phone felt like a betrayal. But the nagging suspicion in the back of my mind wouldn't let me rest. Unlocking her phone was easy. She'd never changed her passcode. I started with her messages, scrolling through the recent ones. There was nothing unusual at first, just the usual chats with friends and family. But then I saw the message thread with someone named Nina. Claire had never mentioned a Nina before. The messages weren't long, but they were enough to send my heart racing. Nina, don't overthink it. You deserve to have fun for once. Claire, I know, but I feel guilty. He's a good man. Nina, you've spent years putting him first. One night won't kill him. Just enjoy yourself. I stared at the screen, my mind racing. Who was Nina, and what exactly was Claire talking about? Then I saw the message that made my blood run cold. Nina, he doesn't need to know. It's better this way. I sat back, the phone trembling in my hands. The words were vague, but the implication was clear. Claire was hiding something she didn't want me to find out. I kept scrolling, hoping for more answers, but the rest of the conversation was gone. She'd deleted most of the messages. I put the phone back where I'd found it, my heart pounding. Questions swirled in my head, each one darker than the last. Who was this Nina? What had Claire done last night? Sleep didn't come easy that night. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 24 hours. By the time the sun rose, I'd made up my mind. I wasn't going to let this go. I needed to know the truth, no matter how much it hurt. The next morning, I couldn't look at Claire without feeling the weight of the unanswered questions between us. She moved around the house as if everything was normal, but I noticed the subtle changes. Her forced smile, the way she avoided prolonged eye contact, the tension in her shoulders. I decided not to confront her right away. If she was hiding something, I needed more than vague messages to figure out what was going on. So I waited. After Claire left for work, I sat down at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee and started planning my next move. The message from Nina was still fresh in my mind, and I couldn't shake the feeling that whoever she was, she held the key to understanding what Claire had been up to. I opened my laptop and searched through Claire's social media. If Nina was a person, there had to be some trace of her. It didn't take long to find her. A friend tagged in a group photo from a party a few months ago. She had dark hair, piercing eyes, and a smile that seemed to hide more than it revealed. I clicked on Nina's profile and started scrolling. Her posts were filled with photos of nights out, bars, clubs, rooftop parties. She didn't seem like the type of person Claire would usually hang out with, which only made the connection between them more puzzling. As I kept digging, I found a post from the night Claire went to the club. It was a picture of Nina and Claire, their arms around each other, both of them laughing. The caption read, "Ladies' night. Much needed break for this beauty." My stomach twisted. Claire hadn't mentioned Nina to me at all, yet here they were, looking like old friends. I checked the timestamp. It was posted around 11 p.m. The last time I'd seen Claire that night was hours before. What had happened after this photo was taken? I clicked on the comments. Most were generic compliments, but one stood out. "Crazy night. Hope you recovered, Claire." It was from a man named Derek. I clicked on his profile, and my heart sank. His page was full of photos of him flexing at the gym, holding drinks at bars, and surrounded by women at parties. He looked like the type of guy who thrived on attention, and something about him set off alarm bells in my head. I scrolled back to his post from that night, and found a video tagged at the same club. It was short, only a few seconds long, but it showed Claire and Nina laughing at a table while Derek stood next to them, leaning in close to Claire. I played the video again, my chest tightening. Claire wasn't just laughing. She was leaning toward Derek, her hand brushing his arm. The way she looked at him made my stomach churn. What had started as suspicion was now morphing into something far worse. When Claire came home that evening, I tried to act normal. She kissed me on the cheek and asked about my day, but I could tell she was testing the waters, gauging whether I suspected anything. "Just the usual," I said casually, watching her carefully. "How was work?" Busy, she replied, grabbing a glass of water. I'm exhausted. Her answers were short, her movements deliberate. She was trying to seem relaxed, but the tension in her body betrayed her. After dinner, she went upstairs to take a shower. I waited until I heard the water running before grabbing her phone again. This time, I checked her photos. Most were innocent pictures of us, snapshots from work. But as I scrolled further, I found a folder labeled Hidden. My breath caught as I opened it. Inside were photos from the night she went to the club. They weren't anything explicit, but they told a story. Claire and Nina laughing over drinks, Claire with Derek's arm around her shoulders, and one photo that made my heart stop. A blurry shot of Claire and Derek outside the club, standing close, their faces inches apart. I couldn't tell if they were kissing, but the intimacy was undeniable. The sound of the shower turning off snapped me back to reality. I quickly locked the phone and put it back on the counter, my hands trembling. When Claire came downstairs, she smiled at me, but it didn't reach her eyes. I think I'm going to head to bed early, she said softly. I nodded, unable to speak. As I lay in bed that night, staring at the ceiling, I felt like my entire world was unraveling. I needed answers, but I wasn't sure I was ready for the truth. The next morning, the tension was unbearable. Claire moved around the house as if nothing was wrong, but I couldn't keep my thoughts from spiraling. Every smile she gave me felt hollow. Every word she said seemed rehearsed. I knew I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. If I didn't confront her soon, the questions in my head would consume me. After breakfast, as she stood by the sink washing her mug, I finally spoke. Claire, can we talk? She paused, her hands gripping the edge of the counter. About what? About you. About the other night. She turned to face me, her expression guarded. James, I told you I went to the club with Sophia and Nina. It was just a girls' night. Why are we still talking about this? I took a deep breath, steadying myself. Because I don't believe you. I saw photos, Claire. I know about Derek. Her face froze, and for a moment I saw panic flash in her eyes. She quickly recovered, though, crossing her arms defensively. You went through my phone? Don't make this about that, I said, my voice firmer than I expected. I wouldn't have looked if you hadn't been acting so suspicious. Who is Derek, Claire? And what really happened that night? She stared at me, her jaw clenched, her eyes darting around the room as if searching for an escape. Finally, she sighed and looked down at the floor. He's no one, she muttered. Just some guy Nina knows. He came over to our table. That's all. Nothing happened. Nothing, I said, my voice rising. Claire, I saw the photo of you two outside the club. You were standing so close. It's not what it looks like, she snapped, her voice breaking. I didn't do anything wrong, James. The tears in her eyes would have convinced me once, but not now. I'd seen too much, and the pieces didn't add up. Then why are you hiding things from me? Why delete messages? Why keep photos in a hidden folder? She shook her head, her hands trembling. Because I knew you'd react like this. I knew you wouldn't understand. It was just one night, James. One stupid night where I wanted to feel, I don't know, alive again. Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. Alive again? Claire, we have a life together. A good one, or so I thought. Was that not enough for you? Tears streamed down her face as she sank into a chair. I don't know, okay? I don't know what's wrong with me. I needed something different, something exciting. Exciting. I repeated, my voice trembling with anger. And you thought flirting with some stranger was the way to fix that? She buried her face in her hands, sobbing. I didn't mean for it to get this far. I didn't mean to hurt you. For a moment, I felt torn. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to hold her, and tell her we could work through this. But the other part of me, the part that felt betrayed and humiliated, couldn't let it go. What did he mean when he commented about you needing to recover? I pressed, my voice cold. She looked up at me, her face pale. I didn't sleep with him, James, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I swear to you I didn't. Then what happened? Claire hesitated, and for a moment I thought she wouldn't answer. But then she took a shaky breath and said, We danced, that's all. He bought us drinks, we danced, and when we left, he tried to kiss me. I pushed him away and went home. That's the truth. I studied her face, searching for any sign of a lie. She looked desperate, her eyes wide and pleading, but I couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story. Why didn't you just tell me from the start? I asked, my voice softer now. Because I was scared, she admitted. I was scared you'd think the worst, that you'd leave me. Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But the trust between us had already been cracked, and I wasn't sure it could be repaired. I need some time to think, I said finally, stepping back. She nodded, her tears falling silently now. Take all the time you need, she whispered. As I walked out of the room, my mind was a storm of emotions. Anger, sadness, confusion. I didn't know what to believe anymore. But one thing was clear. The life Claire and I had built together would never be the same again. The house felt colder that night. Claire stayed upstairs, the sound of her muffled sobs filtering through the walls. I sat alone in the living room, staring at the blank TV screen, trying to process everything she had said. Her explanation made sense, but something about it still felt off. I spent hours replaying her words, comparing them to what I had seen in the photos and messages. If it had been as innocent as she claimed, why the secrecy? Why the lies? Trust, once broken, doesn't mend easily. The next morning, I decided to take action. If she wouldn't give me the full story, I'd find it myself. Claire had left for work by the time I woke up. After she was gone, I grabbed my phone and called the only person who might know what really happened that night. Nina. Her number was easy to find. It was in Claire's contacts. My hands trembled as I hit the call button, unsure of what I would say. Hello, a cheerful voice answered after a few rings. Hi, Nina. I began, trying to keep my tone steady. This is James, Claire's husband. I was wondering if I could talk to you about the other night. There was a brief pause, and when she spoke again, her tone was more cautious. Oh, I'm sure. What's this about? I just need to understand what happened, I said, choosing my words carefully. Claire told me she went out with you, but things don't add up. I found some photos, some messages. Nina sighed, and I could almost hear her debating whether to speak. Look, James, I don't want to get involved in your marriage. Claire's my friend, and I don't want to betray her trust. I'm not asking you to betray her, I said quickly. I just need the truth, please. Nina, if you care about Claire, you'll help me. There was another pause, longer this time. Finally, Nina relented. Okay, she said, her voice low. But you didn't hear this from me. My heart pounded as she began to speak. It started out innocent, she said. We went to the club to have fun, just a girls' night. But then Derek showed up. He's a friend of mine. He saw us and joined our table. Did Claire know him? I asked, my voice tight. No, but she warmed up to him quickly, Nina admitted. They were dancing, laughing, and yeah, he bought us drinks. I didn't think much of it at first. I pressed. Nina hesitated. James, you have to understand, Claire loves you. She wasn't trying to hurt you. But Derek, he's charming, and Claire had a lot to drink. I think she got caught up in the moment. What does that mean? I demanded, my patience wearing thin. They kissed, she said finally. Outside the club, before we left. I told her it was a bad idea, but she didn't listen. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. I'd suspected it, but hearing it confirmed was a different kind of pain. Is that all? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Yes, Nina said firmly. She pulled away and came home. She felt awful about it, James. She's been beating herself up ever since. I thanked Nina and hung up, my mind racing. So, Claire had kissed Derek. She'd lied to me, hidden it, but she hadn't gone further. Was that enough to forgive her? When Claire came home that evening, she looked at me wearily, as if bracing herself for another argument. Claire, I said, my tone serious, we need to talk. Her shoulders sagged, and she nodded. I know, she said softly. I called Nina, I admitted. Her eyes widened, panic flashing across her face. James, she told me everything. I cut her off. About Derek. About the kiss. Claire's face crumpled, and tears spilled down her cheeks. I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I wasn't thinking. It didn't mean anything, I swear. You should have told me, I said, my voice trembling with anger and hurt. Do you have any idea what it felt like to find out this way? To see those photos and messages and wonder what else you were hiding? I know, she cried. I was scared, James. I thought if I told you, you'd leave me. I might have, I admitted, the honesty cutting through the room like a knife. But at least I wouldn't have felt like a fool. For a long moment, we sat in silence, her sobs filling the space between us. I don't know if I can get past this, Claire, I said finally, my voice heavy. You broke my trust, and that's not something you can fix overnight. I'll do anything, she pleaded. Anything to make this right. I need time, I said simply. She nodded, wiping her tears. Take all the time you need. Just please don't give up on us. As she walked away, I felt a mix of emotions. Anger, sadness, betrayal. But beneath it all, there was still a flicker of hope. Maybe, just maybe, we could find a way back to each other. The days that followed were tense. Claire tried to act as though things were normal, but we both knew they weren't. She tiptoed around me, offering apologies in subtle ways, making my favorite meals, leaving little notes on the counter. But it all felt hollow. I needed space, and she gave it to me. At night, I slept on the couch, unable to bring myself to share a bed with her. The silence between us was deafening, and every glance she gave me was filled with desperation, as if she were silently begging for forgiveness. But I couldn't give her that. Not yet. One evening, a week after our conversation, she approached me in the living room. She looked nervous, her hands twisting together. "James," she said softly, "I think we should go to counseling." I looked at her, surprised. Claire wasn't one to suggest therapy. She always believed we could work through things on our own. "I'll do whatever it takes," she added quickly. "I just want to be okay again." I stared at her for a long moment, weighing her words. "I'll think about it," I said finally. She nodded, her face falling slightly, but she didn't push. She turned and walked back upstairs, leaving me alone once again. As I sat there, I realized I wasn't just angry at her. I was angry at myself for trusting her so blindly, for letting it get this far. Something had to change. The next morning, I found Claire sitting at the kitchen table, staring at her untouched cup of coffee. She looked exhausted, as if she hadn't slept at all. I sat across from her, the air heavy with unspoken words. "I've been thinking," I began, my voice steady but low. She glanced up at me, her expression hopeful yet cautious. "Counseling," I said. "Maybe it's worth a shot, but I'm not making any promises." Her eyes filled with tears, and she nodded quickly. "Thank you, James. I know I don't deserve this chance, but I promise I'll do everything to make it right." Later that day, she found a therapist who specialized in couples, and we scheduled our first session for the following week. In the meantime, we existed in a strange limbo, talking only when necessary, avoiding any deeper conversations. When the day of the session arrived, I wasn't sure what to expect. The therapist, a calm woman named Dr. Peterson, welcomed us into her office and asked us for our perspectives. Claire spoke first, her voice trembling as she recounted her feelings of restlessness and guilt. "I didn't realize how much I was hurting him," she said, her hands gripping the edge of her chair. "I thought I needed something different, but I was wrong. I just didn't know how to tell him how I felt." When it was my turn, I laid everything out: the betrayal, the lies, the broken trust. "I don't know if I can ever see her the same way again," I admitted, "and I don't know if I want to try." The session ended with no clear resolution, but for the first time, I felt like we were at least addressing the wounds instead of ignoring them. That night, as we sat in silence on opposite ends of the couch, Claire broke it. "Thank you for coming today," she said quietly. I didn't respond, but I gave her a small nod. It wasn't much, but it was a start. A week after our first counseling session, things seemed to be improving slightly. Claire was more attentive, doing her best to rebuild the trust she'd broken. She started sharing her thoughts more openly, even when they were difficult to express. I tried to reciprocate, though it was still hard to fully let my guard down. But just as I began to consider the possibility of forgiveness, something happened that made me question everything. One evening, as Claire was upstairs taking a shower, her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. I glanced at it instinctively and saw a name that sent a chill down my spine: Derek. The message preview read, "I'm sorry for everything. Can we talk?" My heart raced. I knew I shouldn't, but I couldn't stop myself. I picked up her phone and unlocked it. The message was part of a thread, and I scrolled up to see the rest of their conversation. To my shock, the messages didn't align with the story she told me. "Derek, I still think about that night. You looked amazing in that dress." "Claire, we can't talk about this. I'm trying to fix my marriage." "Derek, you can't deny what we had." I felt it, and I know you did too. My blood boiled as I scrolled further, piecing together the truth she had hidden from me. The kiss wasn't a fleeting mistake. There had been feelings involved, or at least that's what Derek seemed to believe. I put the phone down, my hands trembling with anger. The progress we had made, the therapy sessions, her promises, they all felt like lies. When Claire came downstairs, she immediately noticed the change in my demeanor. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice cautious. I didn't answer at first. Instead, I held up her phone, Derek's message still glowing on the screen. "Care to explain this?" Her face went pale, and she froze. "James, I can explain." "Explain what?" I snapped. "That you've been lying to me this entire time? That there was more to that night than you told me?" Tears welled up in her eyes, but I wasn't moved. "I didn't reply to him," she said, her voice breaking. "I haven't seen him since that night, I swear." "But you wanted to," I said coldly. "Don't lie to me, Claire. Not again." She collapsed into the chair, sobbing. "I was confused, okay? I didn't know what I wanted. But I'm not confused anymore, James. I want us. I want you." Her words hung in the air, but they felt hollow. I turned and walked out of the room, leaving her alone with her tears. That night, I lay awake on the couch, staring at the ceiling. The pain of her betrayal was fresh all over again, and I wasn't sure if I could go through this anymore. The question wasn't whether I still loved Claire, it was whether love was enough. The morning after finding Derek's messages, I woke up on the couch feeling like a shell of myself. Claire's betrayal had hollowed me out, and every moment I spent in that house felt suffocating. She was already awake, sitting silently at the kitchen table with a cup of coffee, the same way she had been on so many mornings since this nightmare began. But today was different. Today, I had no more patience, no more hope. I sat across from her, my voice calm but firm. "Claire, I can't do this anymore." Her eyes filled with tears immediately. "James, please don't say that. We can fix this, I know we can." I shook my head, the weight of my decision pressing down on me. "I tried, Claire. I really did. But you've lied to me again and again. I don't trust you anymore, and without trust, we have nothing." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. "James, I made a mistake, a terrible mistake, but I love you. Doesn't that count for something?" "It used to," I said quietly. "But love isn't enough when it's built on lies." Her sobs echoed through the kitchen as I stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. I went upstairs and grabbed a suitcase, stuffing it with clothes and essentials. Claire followed me, begging me to reconsider, but I was resolute. "I need time, Claire," I said as I zipped up the suitcase. "Time away from you, from this house, from all of it. Maybe someday I'll be able to forgive you, but right now, I can't even look at you without feeling betrayed." Her tears didn't stop, but she didn't try to stop me again. I walked out the front door with my suitcase in hand, leaving behind the life we had built together. For the first few weeks, I stayed with a friend, processing everything that had happened. The silence was deafening, but it gave me the space I needed to think. Claire texted me daily, apologizing, pleading, promising to change, but I couldn't bring myself to reply. Eventually, I filed for separation. It wasn't an easy decision, but it felt like the only way to reclaim my peace. Months later, I found myself sitting in a small apartment far from the home I once shared with Claire. The pain of her betrayal still lingered, but it no longer consumed me. I had started therapy on my own, working through the anger and sadness, and slowly, I began to feel like myself again. One evening, I received a final letter from Claire. In it, she admitted to everything, her doubts, her mistakes, and the truth about what happened that night. She didn't ask for forgiveness, only that I find happiness, whether it was with her or without her. I didn't reply. Claire and I eventually finalized our divorce. She moved out of the city, and we drifted into separate lives. As for me, I'm still healing, but I've learned something important. Sometimes, letting go isn't a sign of failure. It's the first step toward finding yourself again.